Hi, unique souls. Welcome again for our 5th class, lesson 5. I am never upset for the reason I think. I'm never upset for the reason I think. This is one of the classes I frequently quote, for it goes to the heart of our practice. We obviously think we're upset because of what is going on in the world and how it impedes on us. But the only reason we are upset, which is not explicitly taught here, although implied, is that we choose the ego as our teacher instead of Jesus. We choose the ego as our teacher instead of Jesus, instead of truth, whatever you want to call it. This idea, like the preceding one, can be used with any person, situation, or event you think is causing you pain. Applies specifically to whatever you believe is the cause of your upset, using the description of the feeling in whatever term seems accurate to you. The upset may seem to be fear, worry, depression, anxiety, anger, hatred, jealousy, or any number of forms, all of which will be perceived as different. This is not true. For example, I know with whom I am going to study with today. It's my coworker. He really makes me extremely angry. Anyway. However, until you learn that form does not matter, each form becomes a proper subject for the exercises for the day. Applying the same idea to each of them separately is the first step in ultimately recognizing that they are all the same. Expressed here again is a paradox that we are to keep practicing with specifics so that we learn that everything is the same and non-specific. Everything is the same and non-specific. Indeed, this is the central theme of the process given us in A Course in Miracles that will eventually awaken us from the dream. By practicing forgiveness, each and every time we experience upset or dis-ease, the form of our discomfort, we shall become aware of the underlying content of guilt that is the source of discomfort. We shall become aware of the underlying content of guilt that is the source of discomfort. That is when we finally learn the inherent sameness of all illusions. That is when we finally learn the inherent sameness of all illusions. That is when we finally learn the inherent sameness of all illusions. At this point, they will disappear, leaving only the content of love, our only comfort and the true source of peace. This lesson is extremely important because we all get upset and are always sure about the cause. Always sure about the cause. This helps us to realize that we are not upset because of what is outside, but only because of the way we are looking at what is outside. Only because of the way we are looking at what is outside. The lesson's specific assignment of identifying the specific form of upset and the cause we ascribe to it follows. When using the idea for today for a specific perceived cause of an upset in any form, Use both the name of the form in which you see the upset and the cause which you ascribe to it. For example, I'm not angry at blah 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 for the reason I think. I am not afraid of blah 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 for the reason I think. I'm not jealous at blah 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 for the reason I think. Jesus now quickly moves us from the bodily world of feelings to the mind's world of our thoughts. But again, this should not be substituted for practice periods in which you first search your mind for sources of upset in which you believe and forms of upset which you think result. Jesus returns us to the mind-searching aspects of his training. We are to become accustomed to looking within, learning to pay attention to our heretofore repressed guilt, the ultimate source of what we think are our upsets. That's really amazing. Jesus returns us to the mind-searching aspect of his training. We are to become accustomed to looking within, learning to pay attention to our repressed guilt, the ultimate source of what we think are our upsets. In these exercises, more than in the preceding ones, you may find it hard to be indiscriminate and to avoid giving greater weight to some subjects than the others. It might help to precede the exercises with the statement, there are no small upsets, they are all equally disturbing to my peace of mind. So choose the examples indiscriminately again, because there are no small upsets, they are all equally disturbing to my peace of mind. You can try to remind this to yourself a couple of times throughout the day when you remember, when you think it will be functional. It will be helpful for you to remember not to discriminate between your problems, the things you get like extremely angry, jealous, or afraid of. Any example you find, just remind yourself, there are no small upsets. They are all equally disturbing to my peace of mind. We would all tend to discriminate. When something minor upsets us, we think we are only mildly annoyed. Then later in the day, something major happens and we become really angry and we think there's a difference. This is the issue we have been addressing. The ego has us reaffirm the principle that there is a hierarchy of illusions. Since there is one of its primary defenses against the oneness of God. The specificity of the dualistic world belies the unified reality of divine abstraction, to use a theme from the text. This is the reality the ego never wants us to remember or reflect here, since that means the end of the ego. This is the reality the ego never wants us to remember or reflect here, since that means the end of ego. Jesus continues his instructions to us in the same vein. Then examine your mind for whatever is distressing you, regardless of how much or how little you think it is doing so. You may also find yourself less willing to apply today's idea to some perceived sources of upset than to others. If this occurs, think first of this. I cannot keep this form of upset and let the others go. For the purposes of these exercises, then, I will regard them all as the same. I cannot keep this form of upset and let the others go. For the purposes of these exercises, then, I will regard them all as the same. This is what we are to say when tempted to make a hierarchy of what upsets us. And then Jesus reiterates the point in the next sentence. Then search your mind for no more than a minute or so. No more than a minute or so. And try to identify a number of different forms of upset that are disturbing you, regardless of the relative importance you may give them. Okay, search your mind for 1 minute. Try to find out your beliefs, anything that upsets you, any person, any event, any kind of thought that disturbs you, that makes you upset, that makes you feel having all these emotions, jealousy, anger, sadness, guilt, regret, whatever makes you upset. Do not discriminate between these people, thoughts, events. And apply the lesson. I am never upset for the reason I think. I am not angry at James because he does X, Y, Z for the reason I think. So I'm not angry at James because he does X. I don't know why I am really angry at James. Probably it's something else. But I do not yet know what it is. We are leaving it to God to show us. We can see how many times in these early lessons Jesus reminds us how we continually try to make a hierarchy of our experiences, believing some things are important and others are not. He is training us to realize that they're all the same. So if you can, throughout all day today, make a list. If you have a notebook, just write on them. Or if you have maybe a iPhone, you can take notes on your phone. Everything that upsets you, little, big, doesn't matter. And apply the class. You are not angry, sad, upset. You do not regret at something because of the reason you think. He is training us to realize that they're all the same. Once again, an illusion is an illusion is an illusion. A deeper study of what is taught in Course in Miracles yields a rather disturbing revelation. When we're upset, we want to be upset, for that proves we are the innocent victims of what the victimizer is doing to us. We shall return to this very important teaching of the Course later, but for now, I can mention 2 very specific discussions of this. This is not that important. So that's it. You're not angry at James for the reason you think. I'm not afraid of cats for the reason I think. So, go on like this.